The Sony Z range has consistently provided a best-in-class specification sheet since 2013. Top-of-the-range processor, camera, high-quality materials and build, and even waterproofing. From the original Z, we've now had 6 generations in under 30 months, an incredibly fast product cycle by anyone's standards. So what have Sony learned? Well, one of the first things they learned was that not everyone wants a big phone. For the last few years, the pervading design ethos has been that bigger is better. Despite improvements in weight, materials and button positioning, it is still the case that a fair amount of people just don't want a big phone. Sony seems to be the only manufacturer willing to cater to these customers, and ever since the Z1 Compact, we've seen the smaller model outsell the larger model significantly. The Z5 Compact is a solid-looking block that feels very well built in the hand. Having tinkered with the external design of the Z series a few times, Sony have settled on something that looks a little chunky, although has a very pleasant weight. In Generation 4, the Z3 Compact had a plastic build that set it apart from a more premium metal and glass full size. This time round, Sony have kept the construction more consistent, and the Compact really is just that. One big external change is in moving the USB port to the base and removing the flappy cover, as this has now been treated to be water resistant, with the caveat you ensure it is dry before attempting to charge. This also means the unique magnetic charging plate on the left side of previous Xperias has also gone. The left edge now contains the only port cover on the phone, hiding the SIM and memory trays. The design of the Z3 Compact port covers came under fire with a number not closing properly or the seal perishing over time, so I'm pleased to say that the new cover on the Z5 range feels much tighter. The port covers have always been the weak link in otherwise solid design from Sony, so I'm actually happy to see this finally addressed properly with a solid mechanism and only one point of entry. Below the port cover is a lanyard gap, and above is a very neat Xperia logo engraved into the casing. The right edge now features a redesigned power button which has been elongated and widened to accommodate a fingerprint sensor. This is the next generation of technology, and say what you like about privacy and biometric authorization, fingerprint sensors on flagship phones are here to stay. The sensor Sony have used is extremely accurate, and the app asks for a large number of repeated inputs to get a picture of the whole print, managing to register and unlock with only the edge of my thumb after proper initialization. The only downside is possibly the placement. The side seems logical, you can access it from the pocket or when laying on a desk. In practice though, you can often accidentally brush it, registering a false attempt to input. Also, for some bizarre reason, Sony have put the volume controls on the underside of the power button, right next to the camera key. This is where they were on the previous Z generation, although they were much closer to the centre. Now at 3/4 of the way down, it doesn't feel right to just move the thumb down that far. If the Z Compact becomes your personal phone, I'm sure you'll adapt your use to these idiosyncrasies, up to the point where they aren't noticeable. As a first-time user though, they are a little bit jarring. Finally, the backplate is a lovely matte finish, a slightly different tint of your chosen colour to the phone's edging. This slight two-tone effect is visually decent to look at. The Sony Xperia NFC tag and G-Lens brandings are also subtly finished, each becoming obvious at a certain angle of the light and fading as you turn the phone. The camera on this phone is very important. For the past 2 years, Sony have included their 21 megapixel sensor on every Xperia Z device since the Z1, barring the Z Ultra. This is a long time in the mobile industry, and whilst Sony undoubtedly continue to make plenty of money selling their sensors to other manufacturers, they could no longer really credibly claim to have the best mobile camera on the market. With this new 23 megapixel module and wide-angle lens, Sony are once again marketing the world's best camera in a smartphone, if you believe their taglines. So does it live up to the hype? Well, mostly so. There's a few foibles here and there, primarily due to the software rather than the camera's own capabilities. However, with careful use, you'll find some excellent results across a range of scenarios. One thing to clear up is the camera's default resolution. When you first boot up the app, you will be set at 8 megapixels with a 16:9 aspect ratio. If you spot this, you may feel tempted to bump it up to the maximum 23 at 4:3 ratio, or 20 megapixels at 16:9. Now, while there's nothing wrong with doing that, you might not actually get the best results. This is due to how Sony's software works. In basic terms, the picture is taken using the full 23 megapixel sensor, then algorithms and processing software sample it to produce a high quality, smoothed out final 8 megapixel image. This takes up far less space and is suited to the vast majority of shooting styles, from portraits to wide landscapes. The 23 or 20 megapixel option is best saved for times when you want the absolute finest detail. On images shot at this resolution, you can pick out fine details that you might have missed with the naked eye. Hobbyists and artists can use this to zoom, crop, and retouch to their heart's content. For the average user, I'd actually discourage the higher resolution option, as the final results can appear a little washed out in comparison to the very well post-processed 8 megapixel option. Understanding the praise given to Samsung, Apple and even LG for their recent cameras, Sony have a lot of established bias to compete against with this camera. Objective criticism of camera performance is possible, however a lot of image deconstruction is subjective and lends itself to the software processing the images and the environment those shots were taken in. Sony have undoubtedly delivered excellent hardware. The optics and sensor are unmatched in specification and construction. It's impressive how there's no bump surrounding this camera, even on the significantly slimmer full-size Z5. It's also worth noting the dedicated two-phase camera button, which is a welcome inclusion for any budding amateur photographer. You can also screen lock in the app to avoid unwanted touches, using just the volume and camera button to zoom and shoot. When it comes to the final results, one could spend hours staring at side-by-side comparisons of this camera against other high-end devices looking for differences. All this says to me though is that the final images must be just as good at the very least, and we may be reaching a saturation point of how good a camera crammed into a mobile device can be. With the results from the Z5 range not up to scratch against the competition, any differences would be obvious and widely reported. The only downside I could find with the camera would be the responsiveness. Unless it's recently been used, the app generally takes a couple of seconds to load from pressing the camera button or pressing the icon, followed by another second or two after capturing an image to save it. This is in stark contrast to Samsung and Apple, who can have you into their apps in about a second, then freely snapping multiple images with seemingly little processing time. Now this doesn't matter so much if you're taking your time to carefully frame your shots, although it could hamper the quick point and capture the moment ideal that mobile photography offers. The time to save is also undoubtedly down to the software underlying the camera. The super sampling of the high resolution image could well be addressed in future updates. Those interested, then video recording is also of very high quality. The option to record in 4K, whilst still relatively niche, is a welcome inclusion. Sony also seems to have better addressed the overheating issues 4K recording has brought about in the past. The phone, or more correctly the processor, still gets fairly warm when churning through 4K footage. However, the 2 to 3 minute reboots we've seen in older models are now definitely a thing of the past. You can also zoom when recording 4K too, not everyone else has got that down. At the more standard 1080p resolution, you can switch to high speed and slow motion options as well, plus there's a whole host of fun filters and options to use within the camera application. Gone are the days when Sony had the lightest Android skin, launcher and installation around. I still prefer Sony's Xperia home launcher to the competition, however all of them now seem a bit superfluous, when the far cleaner stock Android Google Now launcher and other alternatives are all a simple Google Play download away. Of course, if we assume that the majority of users are still unaware that changing your launcher is a thing, we can look at the Xperia home launcher as Sony's attempt to differentiate on the interface level. Google services and the Play Store are front of house, with the Sony dialer, messaging, contacts and camera app docked by default. Centred just above is a neat widget for first-time Sony users that are designed to take you to other apps, show off some operating basics, and then be removed. This is much cleaner than the annoying pop-ups and overlays that other launchers use. Other than this, you'll find a fair bit of clutter in the app drawer when you open it for the first time. It's an example of feature creep and licensing deals that Sony have clearly taken up to supplement their software and provide an improved user experience. Almost all the added apps can be removed, and a handful such as the social stuff you would probably install anyway. Removing all the extras adds about a gig of storage to the 21.5 available out of the box, so the system installation itself is taking up about 10 gigs. If you pop into the settings, you'll actually find a fair few customization options too. Sony's tweaking to Android allows a decent amount of choice for the status bar, notification LED, notifications themselves and power management. You can also adjust the screen's white balance if the standard isn't to your liking. Battery life is pretty good as standard as well. Sony's stamina mode, similar to the new doze feature in Android 6, has been significantly increasing the lifespan of Xperias for years. The Z5 Compact is a workhorse. Given a couple of weeks to learn your usage patterns, as all new Qualcomm devices do, the phone should get its way through a full day and sometimes two with ease, especially with a recent major software update from Sony. A new firmware released in early November has addressed security issues and claims to have improved camera and system performance. In the Z5 Compact, we're treated to a wonderfully detailed camera and a solid, stylish design that from my use seems to be much more durable than previous outings. If you're weighing up which of Sony's two new smartphones to go for, then it really all comes down to battery life and physical size. My personal choice would be the Compact. I feel the thicker edges and overall dimensions actually make for a more comfortable hold. Plus the smaller, lower resolution screen ups the lifespan without really impacting use. The full-size Z5 is available and I can see the appeal. Its slimmer construction and 1080p screen round out the premium look for the more fashion-conscious, and to continue trying to compete at the very top, Sony do need that. For me though, the Compact is the one to choose simply for being better suited to a pick-up-and-go lifestyle. Competition is strong right now however, and Sony might struggle against recent price drops from the Galaxy S6, last year's iPhone 6 and LG's G4. This new compact from Sony remains the best small Android you can buy. However, if you're a budget-conscious consumer out to get the best overall deal you can find, the headline prices of some very strong competition could be enough to sway you away. For fans of Sony's design ethos, battery life, waterproofing and camera quality though, you have plenty to look forward to in the Z5 Compact.